Hi guys. I really think that we should have studied chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 during the first few weeks because these are definitely some techniques that would have been helpful in the beginning because a lot of them are used when you're getting to know the client first thing. So chapter 1 is scaling. And I think we've all used this at some point, but it makes me feel like when we're at the doctor's office and they're like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much pain are you in? Or you see those little smiley faces to the frowny faces and they have you circle those. I've seen those a couple times at my kid's doctor's office. So, scaling helps clients and counselors make complex problems seem more concrete and tangible. Steve, I'm doing my video. What's up? Sorry about that interruption. Back to what we were talking about. So it's used in this solution-focused brief counseling. And scaling helps find a way to move from the more abstract concepts toward more of an achievable goal. It helps the clients have a sense of control and they take responsibility. It helps measure the progress towards accomplishing their goals. Scaling is usually asked on a scale from 1 to 10. And so, for instance, a counselor might have asked the first session, how do you feel about counseling? And it's like, ooh, like a 3. And now that we're at week 10, they're like, oh, it's a 10. I love it. So then the counselor can say, so how did you get from a 3 to a 10? And then that can reveal even more information from there. So you might also ask about how they feel towards other things. Like, how do you think your parents or your teachers would rank your ability in class or your efforts that have been going on? So it's motivation to change. Scaling helps assess progress, confidence in finding a solution, and the severity of the problem, and helps build self-esteem. I could definitely use scaling in my everyday practice with my students that come in. I think that I could also use it with adults. Just overall, scaling is a thumbs up technique that's beneficial. Chapter 2 is exceptions. If I'm being honest with you guys, I didn't really know that this was a technique, but it's definitely something that I use a lot. I just didn't realize that it was actually a technique. So this is also found in the solution-focused brief counseling. It's a time when the problem is not happening. The exception is a resolution that the client has achieved, but it's only temporary. We often recognize exceptions to the problems, and they tend to deny the significance of it because of the way that our brain filters and processes and stores the information. So counselors will listen for exceptions, point them out, and then help find solutions with their clients. The clients are then able to gain hope and they feel empowered, and that's what we're here for. It's all about the client. So it's used non-directively, and the counselor is always listening for an instance of when the problem improved or wasn't happening. So the example in the book was about a brother and sister who fight all the time. And the sister comes to counseling and she's always talking about how they don't get along. But then she says, well, he took me to the mall and we went shopping and so I could hang out with my friends. So that's an exception. So the counselor might note that and then bring it up later in the session and say, well, what about the time that your brother did this? And then the client might respond, well, I guess he wasn't a jerk this day. And then the counselor can say, well, let's pretend that it's more than that. Maybe there was something you did differently that caused this exception. So that will help the client gain a better understanding of, oh yeah, maybe my brother isn't that big of a jerk and maybe we can get along. Another helpful way of using exceptions is, tell me a time when, or how close have you come? And I think those are the words that we have used all along throughout our sessions too. It helps identify strengths and resources within the client and helps the client view the situation with internal focus of what's going on and helps the client once again take responsibility. It's very effective for middle school and high school students, which that's where I work with. So I think that this is a technique that I could use with my students on a daily basis. The last one is chapter 3 that I did, and that's problem-free talk. if I'm being real again, I didn't realize this was a technique, and this is something that we do all the time. This is how we get to know people. And so it's important to the solution focus technique because it establishes connection with the client. The client and the counselor are engaged in discussions on the positives in their life and what is currently working and getting to know the person first. The purpose is to help the client get to know you and feel comfortable with you, and it helps the counselor see the strengths and the resources, the abilities, the interests, and all those things of the client instead of looking at the illness or the stress or the complaints that usually follow. So it's building that rapport, and that's the main foundation of a client and counselor relationship. It shows that you are interested in the client as a person. It helps the nervousness go away, and it helps the client see that you're not just a know-it-all expert, that you're actually there to help, and that you're a real person too. It helps the counselor see the client defined by something instead of the actual problem. Self-talk is used during the beginning stages of counseling process. It's something that just comes natural, but sometimes the counselor, always the counselor should be listening and taking note of what the client is sharing. It's important to engage in problem-free talk and to stay positive. So tell me more about yourself. What are some positive things that are going on in your life right now? So realizing hidden strengths, the times of coping, and potential resources can serve as a decrease of the hopelessness and increase the motivation of the client. So these helpful solution-focused techniques are going to be the foundation of the counseling process with a new client and everything. So definitely going to use these techniques with every client that we have to build that relationship. And these are quote unquote easy. So I think that we can definitely explore these more and make them effective for our clients. So thank you for joining me. Have a good night.